Welcome to T-Smack, home of the T-Smack. May I take your order?
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking Smack, where we talk superheroes, movies, animation, comics, and much, much more. I'm your host, Josh Scar, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, everyone's favorite bald kitty cat, Alex. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I gotta admit, my hackles are a little up, claws are up, because I'm a little being backed into a corner by two Green Bay fans, and I don't know how I feel about this.
Hey, the season's right around the corner. We just played the last preseason game, and it's time for some predictions. We are joined by Dan Kotnik of Game On Wisconsin and the Packet A podcast network. How does Andy talk about it? Is it Packet A network? How does that work?
I would say at this point it's grown into a network. I remember back at the very beginning when we were only doing 20-minute episodes a day, and now we are releasing 2 podcasts as well as a YouTube video every single day, and have been doing that for almost 5 years now. So I would definitely call this a network at this point now. But yeah, no, we have a lot of fun over there. Our whole team has been releasing an episode. We started in the beginning of the 2018 Green Bay Packers season and have not missed a single day since then. So count up.
Heck yeah.
We made like a huge deal about when we hit 1,000 episodes, and then it was like a year and a half later, like, oh, we're coming up on 2,000. Like, oh, we're just never going to stop doing this. Okay. Yeah, it's a lot of fun over there. We got to. That's a if you are a Packer fan at all, we've got a lot of deep NFL knowledge throughout the Packet A podcast network. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm extraordinarily grateful for what the Twitter algorithm used to be, because I did start watching the Packet A podcast probably back in, I think maybe 2019, it had to have been 2020, I think, just because like we're all in lockdown and we need extra content. So I think just looking for something to coincide with Cheesehead TV, because Cheesehead TV only does so much as well. And listening to local sports stuff for me, at least, had gotten to a point where I just didn't want to do it. I'm going to throw some shade here. What the hell? Danny Parkins. Danny Parkins can go fuck himself from Chicago media. That dude he can say a lot of words and not say a damn thing. And he was on Chicago airwaves for like 6 or 7 years. And I just stopped listening to the score entirely because everything was focused around him. And again, I prefer it when people have something to say, even if it's just speculating. And and that's one thing I appreciate about Andy Herman, who is kind of the face of Packet A. He at least always prefaces like, this is my opinion, this is what I feel, this is what I think, this is an educated guess. At least he takes a stance, at least he says something. Whereas Danny Parkins, again, he could go on for 5 minutes and never get to a damn point. And now he's going off to some Fox show, and good riddance to bad rubbish.
I thankfully have. Well, I guess it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I have the pleasure of not living in the Chicago radio DMA, but I do live in the Detroit radio market. Thankfully, I used to work at that radio station when I first moved here, so I know a lot of the guys that still work there, and a lot of those guys there are seem to be an exception to the like sports radio gas bag moniker, you know, like what you're talking about. It's like just talk with nothing going on. Thankfully, these guys over here in Detroit do a pretty good job, but it still sucks. Like the one time we lose to Detroit every year, I'm like, great, can't listen to the radio for a whole week because I have to listen to all that crap. But yeah.
Well, we've been talking about what everyone else does, and also like my peeves with Chicago sports radio. But Dan, please let everyone know what you do in terms of the podcasting game or YouTube game in your case.
Yeah, sure. We obviously do Packet A podcast every single day. I am currently on our Monday shows, which is a lot of fun, especially as we get started into the season. We get to do more of the game recap stuff every single week. Over on the Packet A or the Game On Wisconsin side, unfortunately, Lombardi's Bar, your and my's favorite show, is not coming back this season.
Oh no!
I think it was just some like Jimmy Christensen, God bless his soul, on our team just keeps deciding to have kids, and I'm not sure what his. I don't know if like he's got like some sort of legally binding agreement with his wife that it just keeps happening, but like he just keeps having kids, and he's like, I can't keep doing this every single weekend. But I will be bouncing around to a couple of other our really good Game On Wisconsin shows, like Coast to Coast Packers on Tuesday nights, and then we'll still be doing our post game coverage. It's me and Umar Desai. We have a lot of fun doing those. That's one that's like it's the closest you can get to like doing sports radio is doing like those live stream post game shows, because it's like everyone wants to say something about it, and no one's had a chance to like look at anything with any sort of context or anything. Everyone's just pissed off or like super jazzed, so you just get the raw emotion from it.
The reactionary stuff is great. I remember it had to have been the double-doink game, actually, being in the Chicagoland area. I immediately went to my computer, turned on the live stream of the post game, and I just listened to it. And it was just, it was the next best thing to winning the Super Bowl was listening to the Bears fans crying about the double-doink.
Oh, I get it. When I am an Ohio State fan. I grew up in Ohio.
Buckeyes.
My dude.
I'm a Purdue graduate, so I can't include myself in that.
The Buckeyes, my father-in-law graduated from there. My wife's a huge Buckeye fan. There's rituals that have to happen when the Buckeyes are playing. Like, if we go and visit her father and it is a Saturday, she is not allowed to like enter the house or be within like a 3-mile vicinity of a TV with the game on. Otherwise, their lead can be 54-7 against some unranked team, and she walks in the house and the score has flipped. Well, yes,
I just remember that in 2015 when they won, it was the first college football playoff, so they beat Alabama in the first game. And a buddy of mine, I was still in college, and a buddy of mine that was staying with me, it's like it's break, so like there's nothing to do. The next morning, it was the first and only time I've ever listened to the Paul Feinbaum show, because I just wanted to hear every bit of crying and tears from the Alabama fans. So I get it. That's some of the best Schadenfreude you can find.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we are here to do a quick hits episode where we're going to just recap a lot of stuff that we were going to cover for the podcast, but due to time, scheduling, and whatever else, we didn't get a chance to do it. So it's similar to a What You Doing, but we're going to cover things that we were planning on it. But first, we're going to hear from our friends Lisa and Dawn over at the I Hate It, Let's Watch It podcast, and we'll be right back.
Hi everyone, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Dawn.
And if you've ever watched a TV show and thought to yourself, oh my god, that season finale plot twist was absolutely bonkers.
Or seen a movie and thought, wow, I need to talk to somebody about this train wreck immediately.
Then we think you'll fit right in with our podcast, I Hate It, Let's Watch It. We watch TV shows like Riverdale and Emily in Paris.
And movies like Deep Water, Killer Sofa, Rubber, and Deadly Illusions. And we give them the total rinsing they deserve.
It's basically group therapy for movie masochists. So come check us out wherever you stream podcasts.
Definitely check out Dawn and Lisa at the I Hate It, Let's Watch It podcast. But we are going to talk about some things that maybe we hated, maybe we loved it. Either way, we watched it. Normally, we would let the guests go first, but we have some big news. And Dan, I know you're a pretty big Star Wars fan anyway, so we're going to talk the Acolyte. That's something that we were going to cover. But then we got our awesome string of interviews that we had. I believe Michael Hirsch's interview interrupted that one. So let's really quickly just talk about Dan, we'll let you start. What were your thoughts at the end of the Acolyte? Where were you at with your feelings on the show?
I think your friend of the podcast ad might have just summed it up there. Like, I hate it. Let's watch it. That seems to be like my take on so many of the Star Wars, like some of these like recent Star Wars shows is like, this is going to be a train wreck. I can't wait to watch it. And I don't know. That's what the Acolyte felt like, and it was it had some really good portions of it, like some of the best lightsaber fights I've seen in Star Wars. Like it was so well choreographed, but there were some of the parts where it was like, what? Like they decided to do what with this? Like what what are they setting up? And everything that I keep watching, like all of these other like ancillary shows and stuff like that, the running thread that I've kind of kept in the back of my mind is like they're trying to, so much of this is trying to retcon the infamous somehow Palpatine returned bit, you know? And it makes sense in like so many things. Like, okay, they're setting this up, they're talking about this is how this happened. And some of the choices that they made with the Acolyte, I'm like, this is so far ahead of this. You're not setting up, you're not trying to retcon anything from the movies themselves. So why make these choices? And it a lot of it just left a bad taste in my mouth after I watched it.
I think the final few minutes of the final episode, yeah, I'm in 100% agreement. Like, there's a lot of stuff that just, like, if it was a pitch meeting kind of thing, they would just be like, I need the show to end. Like, this is the end of the episode. This is the end of the season. This has to happen. Okay, but shouldn't we take time to develop it? Nope, it's got to end now.
Right.
But like, I absolutely loved like episode like 4, 5, 6, and most of 8. But like the flashback episodes in 3 and 7, I was like, what are you trying to do here? Like, other than pad time. The flashback in the first flashback episode felt like, okay, I see what you're doing. And you're building up to a mystery, and then like maybe we'll get another flashback, like short flashback. But no, we get a full episode of the Jedi perspective of the flashback, and it's like, this is meandering and stupid. The first episode, if I'm nitpicking or griping on anything, the first episode is just like speed running to set up these pieces that made choices that made absolutely no sense. Like the one that stood out to me the most was, you have Osha is on the prisoner transport. The prisoner transport starts to go down. The other prisoners escape. She's crashing. We cut to the Jedi Temple. And then you have Sol and the other people. And they're like, oh, hey, we got these prisoners. And Osha might be part of this crew somewhere on the crashing planet. And then we cut back and Osha's like still crashing to the planet. But it's like, you picked up these people, got them to Coruscant, and in prison, questioned them. And now you're updating Sol, but she's still crashing. Like, how does this work? What are you doing? Like, that sequence felt like that should have been the start of episode 2, not like building up to a hook at the end of episode 1. Like, what are you doing here? That part alone, like, just the setup of that was like Game of Thrones season 8 stuff, where you're just like, I need to tell a story. I need to get these people in the right places. I don't care how they do it. I think, like you said, the lightsaber fight, I think it was in episode 4, or maybe it was the start of episode 5
with all
that
the
one,
other Jedi. And
where it's like all the Jedi versus, spoiler alert, Manny Jacinto's Sith, the Stranger. That was fantastic. And like the deaths in those sequences were just stunning. Like, I did not think they were getting rid of Yord. There was a whole hype train for Yord.
Right.
Daphne Keene was killed off unceremoniously. Like, she did some cool stuff, and then just 3 quick jabs through the throat, and then 2 to the like either side of the chest. I was like, they just killed off Daphne Keene. Like, she's gonna be in. She's X-23. What are you doing? Like, again, we're hype trained about this.
Yeah, I think you nailed it with like speed running, because like that's what it felt like. Was it felt like if you're trying to tell, like, you have 5 minutes to tell somebody a 10-minute story, and you're trying to like hit all the major points, and then you realized like, oh, but you also need this backstory. So let me like tell you this this other story real quick. Okay, like, where was I? Okay, like, let me pick up on, okay, and then and that's like, oh, but wait, but also this happened. Like, none of it felt like it was really building any sort of depth. And the stuff that was supposed to be depth, like this big mystery around, you know, what did the Jedi do on Brandok? Like, what is going on? It's like, the big mystery was that Sol accidentally killed Osha and May's mother, And that was kind of also like maybe justified because she was turning into like some weird black force cloud and he doesn't know what the hell's going on.
She just unannounced decided to start using some weird force switch magic, and like, what else is he supposed to do?
Right. Like I don't mean to come on and be like a like straight up I don't know, like cop defender, but like
that's
like,
where I was
like dude,
too.
like it's like someone pulls out something that looks like a gun, like I'm gonna shoot it, like that's
it's like that Dane Cook joke where he's like, they thought he had a grenade, but no, it was a pear.
It was a pear. And like then you've got all like literally the entire other coven of witches are mind controlling a gigantic Wookiee they're trying to kill these Jedi with the mind controlled Wookiee. And they sever the connection and they all die, and that was the cover up. Like it none of it felt earned. And then on top of it, like none of it felt earned enough that May or Osha would switch to the dark side because of it and want to kill Soul. Like it just none of it felt earned, and it felt like you said, like they're just trying to speed run through this. And that's why I hate getting to this point where we have to like bag on it, because it's not these popular opinions that people want to like shout down about, quote unquote wokeness or whatever. That stuff is stupid, but like it can still be a bad show, a poorly written show, and not have this quote unquote wokeness attached to it. It's hard to articulate that without being lumped into
it would still be
negative.
This bad if there was a bunch of white people in the cast,
right? If they were all white people, all white hetero, like it's still bad.
The problem is that the show thinks it's more clever than it is. It does feel like there is an issue in which they have to, which is my problem with most of the Disney Star Wars stuff, is that they feel like they have to patch up a hole somewhere. Like, okay, Rogue One, big hole. Why would there be an issue with this? Why would there be an issue with the Death Star? Not to say that throughout history, vehicles, cars, ships have not had an Achilles heel somewhere on them. No, there has to be reasons. And when they start patching up those reasons, it does make the series seem less special. And like Luke didn't just trust the Force and knew about it, and all those people died to get it. Oh, because it was built in intentionally. Okay, all right. And now they're trying to patch two holes. One is, how did Palpatine return? We already know how Palpatine returned. You can just say somehow Palpatine returned, and you could have had Palpatine say, "Did you not think that I did not learn it from my master?" Which he already explained it in the third movie. No, they have to explain that. But then they also have to explain, how did Anakin appear? Well, because the Sith also stole that from the Space Coven. It's like, why does that matter? Can't it be just an immaculate birth that happens because he was the one? No, it has to be this. But my biggest problem with it is aside from patching, is like I said, they think they're more clever than they are. You have Carrie-Anne Mouse. She's doing all the press tour stuff. And they want to go, aha, she died immediately, and leave fans thinking she's going to come back. No, she's dead. That's the hype that they did with the first Scream movie, with Drew Barrymore being in the cast. Oh, blah, blah, Drew Barrymore, A-list star. Oh, they killed her off immediately. All stakes change, But then they do their sliding doors Rashomon episodes 3 and 7, these flashbacks, one from one side, one from the other. But the problem they forgot about sliding doors in the Rashomon is that these people tell completely different stories. It's not just the camera's on a different side of the screen following a different group of characters. The words change, the dialogues change, the personalities change, the aspects change. So you get that muddled confusion. So at the end of it, you're stuck with muddled confusion of, who do I actually believe? And they couldn't nail that. They thought they knew what they were doing, but they didn't. And I don't necessarily think it's the worst thing ever destroyed Star Wars. If you want to argue that, you can argue that going back to Heir of the Empire. You can argue that going back to the special editions being released. You can argue that with Attack of the Clones. I would certainly argue that with Last Jedi. The show just isn't great. That's the problem. Does Star Wars need to be great? Honestly, I don't freaking know. The Mandalorian, seasons 1 and 2, I think are fantastic. There's bad episodes. The first episode of Mandalorian is not very good. It starts off strong. He kills the guy, the door slices, but then he's goofing off for 20 minutes on like this little creature that's throwing him around. I'm like, what the heck is this? And then it ends with the gut punch, naked Gizmo that is Baby Yoda. And I'm like, okay, I'm back
Gizmo is always naked.
Okay, deferred Gizmo.
There you go.
And then the second season has some really bad stuff too, but it ends so strong. Star Wars is always going to have good and bad stuff. The problem seems to be they don't seem to understand how to balance the good with the bad nearly as well as they used to.
Yeah, Star Wars, I understand like getting different perspectives on the Star Wars world, and they've done a really great job of bringing in a lot of different directors and writers to like bring kind of these different aspects to the world. But like, there are also certain things that make Star Wars Star Wars. The Jedi are good. Yes, they can be flawed, and there are flaws, and we've seen that. I mean, that's basically the setup for the entire Skywalker saga is, the Jedi being flawed. But like, there's being flawed in like the hubris of not recognizing the Sith, and then there's covering up like a Vietnam War crime.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why am I rooting for the Jedi at all in this? I'm not rooting for the Jedi. I don't want to root for the Sith because there's no redeeming quality there. Like they're not providing any sort of new take on the dark side of the Force. So who am I supposed to root for? What's the point you're trying to make? Like what's the different angle you're trying to give me on the Star Wars universe? And none of it just ever seemed to land the plane right.
See, I think that not to rebuttal your point much, but there is one thing that the Sith bring, as we found out from 7, 8, and 9, and this one: abs. They will seduce the Jedi with abs, sexy abs coming out of water, being rained on. That's what they bring to the gun show.
I mean, this was a number one abs of Star Wars lore, right? Was this? I mean, like Adam Driver is second banana all day long.
Manny Jacinto didn't even really have to bulk up. Like Manny Jacinto's a beautiful looking man. He has my vote over Adam Driver any day of the week anyway.
I didn't know The Good Place was really that good, man. They should have had a shirt off way more in that show.
But speaking of Manny Jacinto, I loved him as the Stranger. Like, I thought he brought a really quiet menace to the role, but the Stranger had no impact. The reveal of who the Stranger is had no impact on the story whatsoever. They did the flashback, so I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, well, I still think it's probably Carrie-Anne Moss because she's like the most famous person in this cast. So like that would make the concept behind her apparent death more interesting, is she needed to get away so she could hone her dark side skills. But then we get the flashback episode and it's like, okay, maybe it's the other mother. Maybe it's not the one who became the cloud of smoke, but maybe it's the other one that was like very aggressive and like, we need to kill these Jedi. No, they just happen to be part of the flashback story. None of them matter. The only thing that matters is that they are dead and Manny Jacinto is here to tempt them with the dark side. And like, that's fine. But then you need to rework how those characters are. Like, you're just creating intentional red herrings and you're trying to make us guess. And then it's pretty obviously Manny Jacinto at a certain point after he's like, especially when they're walking through the jungle area where he's like, have you met him? Do you know who he is? Do you have any idea who he might be? You're poking the bear to see if they can see if she has any hints as to who you are, because you're playing this bumbling idiot. Like if he had been around for longer than 2 5-minute scenes and we were like, oh, this guy's funny, he's the comic relief guy, and then out of nowhere it's like, oh, by the way, he's the bad guy, like, oh, okay, bigger hit. But no, it's just played off as like, oh, reveal time and be shocked and stunned. But I do think the lightsaber fight between the Stranger and Soul was fantastic. Like, I think that was easily one of my favorite parts of the show.
Dude, how can you not love something where you headbutt a lightsaber? that was missing from Vader's. Like, he should have headbutted Luke's lightsaber. Take that, son.
That I can't remember the name of the element, but like the element that he's made his armor out of that clearly, you know, shorts out the kyber crystal stuff, and like just that is a cool part of it. I want like that, like that's the kind of like off-brand like twist. Like I don't like do a lot of the background lore stuff, but like once I learned about like Mandalorian armor and like steel, and it's like, oh, that can do that. Like, that's a fun twist. Now what can we do with that? This was a fun twist. What can we do with this? Like, that's how you take something new and add it into a story.
That's from the Legacy books. It's some kind of material they put between it. They talk about like Empire would build it like into like important doorways because it's like very rare and it's a material that shorts it so they can't just shove through it.
Yeah.
I had to look it up. It's called Cortis metal.
Cortis. That's
But speaking of like the Mandalorian stuff, I really, really hope that we do see more of a Fall of Mandalore, like the fight between the Jedi and the Mandalorians, because one of my favorite things is they learn they can't use blaster rifles because the Jedi deflect them. So what they do is they use pellet-based rifles, shotguns, because the pellets go through and melt through the laser, right? Because the laser melts as it go through, and then it's just flaming hot shrapnel. So they're just buckshotting Jedi. It's one of my favorite random bits of lore is that you read it and you're like, what the? Are they using shotguns?
If they made half of the next season of The Mandalorian a flashback to all of like the fall of Mandalore and everything, they have my blessing.
Oh yeah, I just want to see some Mandalorians rolling out with like double barrel shotgun. Sorry, completely hijacked. I love random like legacy lore stuff like that. That just makes you go, huh? All right, cool.
All right, so let's move into the ratings for this one. With Talking Smack, we do must see or pass because there's no nuance or anything like that. So would you recommend it or would you say nah? I would say that at this point, I think it's a pass, especially with it not getting a season 2. I think there's some good stuff in there, but overall, I didn't feel the Star Wars feels that other things have given me. So I would say it's a pass. Dan, how about you?
Yeah, I try to go off of like any of the new stuff. I try to think of like, would I recommend this to my mother-in-law? Because she came to me about like, should I watch The Mandalorian? And I was like, you need to watch The Mandalorian. She's not like a Star Wars fan. So I'm like, would I recommend this to my mother-in-law? And no, I would not. This is only, I only watch this because I'm a sycophant and need to watch everything Star Wars. But yeah, I would not revisit this at all.
I really want to like take the contrarian and be like, what are you guys talking about? But it's a pass. I think Star Wars has reached the point where these shows and movies are not special enough that it's a must-see. You have to embrace it all. Watch the first 20 minutes. If you don't, bail out. There's too much good TV, good movies, or just comfort shows to rewatch to force yourself through something because you feel like you have to catch up.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Let's move on. Dan, half the reason we were even doing this is because you were really excited to go see Twisters. You were like, can I come on for the Twisters episode? And because I gave you everyone at Watching Stuff and Game on Wisconsin like a free pass to come on and join us. So I was like, hey, yeah, if you can make it, we can make it work. And then again, we had interviews, so we had to pass on Twisters, but that meant you could be here because you had other obligations at the time. So let us know about Twisters.
Yeah, I literally thought about reworking an entire international trip just to be able to come on and do a Twisters episode. I mean, I love Twister. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. You know, I'm a 90s kid, so that came out and was hitting VHS/DVD like right when I was, you know, imprinting on all of the technology. And I loved it as a kid. I rewatch it like at least once a year. It's such a good movie. And growing up in the Midwest, tornadoes have always fascinated me. And I'm always really trepidatious about any time, you know, the first initial like variety piece comes out or something that's like, oh, remember this movie from the 90s that you loved? Like they've decided to make a sequel of it. And I'm always like, oh God, like they're gonna ruin it. It's gonna be bad. And a lot of the times I end up getting proven wrong. And I did the same thing with Twisters, and I'm like, oh my God, they're going to ruin this. And the first time I watched the trailer, I thought for sure they were going to ruin it, because I thought it was just going to be, hey, remember Twister, where they had like some really big tornadoes? Well, now here's some really big tornadoes. This one's with fire. This one is, this one throws cool stuff around everybody. Right, this one has fireworks. But it was not that at all. This Twisters, I thought, it's not Twister, but it's its own thing. The only way I could describe it was Twister is like Jaws, not in the same like quality, but like the same style of like man versus nature. Nature's just existing. We're just trying to figure out what to do with nature. Twisters is like Deep Blue Sea, where it's like nature is pissed off and we're gonna fight back against nature. and I love I love Jaws and Deep Blue Sea, and I love both of these movies. I thought they did a really good job of not going over the top with the tornado stuff, still making it at least semi kind of reasonable and still getting to do some really cool crap with it. And Glen Powell I for one welcome our new Glen Powell overlords. He's the star of the future. Like Glen Powell is he's gonna be the guy that my son grows up watching in like every big movie now,
That's fair.
I just had an absolute blast with it. It was big. It was dumb at times. They didn't go too schmaltzy with it when they really, really could have. So yeah, I had a hell of a time watching that movie.
All right, Dan. I love Twister. In fact, my wife and I have like recently watched it like 3 times because it's just a comfort show. We have we go through a cycle of comfort shows.
It's like the one disaster movie you could call a comfort movie.
It is. I mean, the stuff about Dorothy and like crying and then visiting, seeing Philip Seymour Hoffman before he really got big.
Yeah.
It's such a just good comfort show. And last night we finished off Jaws because we kind of been watching it piecemeal, forgetting that we were in the middle of it, which was fantastic. And you got me with Deep Blue Sea because that's one of my favorites because it's so dumb. We love bad movies. Like, watched all the Sharknadoes, had watch parties with them because they're fantastic. We recently watched a movie called Super Icyclone, which is a terrible movie about a tornado that mixes up with a current and starts making spikes. And spoiler alert, they have to defeat it by blowing it up because you gotta.
You have to.
Santa Jaws is one of my Christmas movies. Santa Claus gets eaten by a shark, and the shark then gets Santa's hat, lands on its head, the fin, and now it has Santa's powers. I'm not kidding. It's a real movie. So my main question for you about Twisters. Is it a sequel, a remake, a reboot? What would you call it? Because that's the part that confuses me. Is I don't know how to go and approach it. Where would you say it stands in relation to the original one? Like remake, sequel, side sequel?
I would call it like a side sequel. I'm trying to think of like the best way to like. I go into this analogy very delicately because I understand the company of which I'm in. It's almost sort of like a Marvel movie where Captain America and like Thor, they're not sequels to each other, but like they're in the same universe, and so like some of the stuff gets shared over, and it's not necessarily that they're like playing off of each other, but like if you go see like I can't remember off the top of my head like one of the more obvious ones, but like something in like Captain America, and then you go watch Thor and you're watching and you're like, oh wait, that's Captain America's shield like hanging in the background. Like okay. I know that because I watched Captain America. This one, it's like there are enough like little Easter eggs. Some are more obvious than others, but there's a lot of like really small Easter eggs that it's like if you liked Twister, you'll pick up on these, and it makes it just that much better. And so like they and the movie all kind of operates in that same sort of universe. It never addresses like anything that happened in Twister, okay. but you know that you kind of get the feeling like everyone in this knows what happened in Twister and it's affecting what they're doing now, kind of thing.
And since it's not a Disney movie, I'm assuming that Bill Paxton does not appear in this as played by somebody else.
No, but his son does does have a small cameo in it.
His biological son, or like the son of Helen Hunt and his character?
His
Or
biological
both?
son.
Oh,
His
okay.
biological son. Yeah, he's not like, it's not like, like my daddy was the first, tornado wrangler this parts has ever seen. No, it's the legitimate son of Bill Paxton plays a cameo in that, and it's like, if you know that that's Bill Paxton's son, you're like, oh, cool. Like that.
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
All right, that's cool.
I have to compliment the country accent. That took me back to like Disney's Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham. Like you had that right kind of like pitch and like that weird squeak that they do, like almost a voice break. That was good.
Thank you.
So I think the only thing from Twisters that I've heard about that I have not like had confirmed through even just like listening to other podcasts talk about it. Glen Powell, Tom Cruise's next form of evolution.
Surprisingly accurate.
Have you seen? I think ESPN did another like college football thing where they like what they did previously with Eli Manning, where they like made him look like a college student.
Oh God.
I think they did that with Glen Powell, but they made him look like Tom Cruise from Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's rough.
Oh no.
It's funny
bizarre.
you bring up Tom Cruise. I listened to Unspooled with Paul Scheer and Amy Nicholson, and Amy has brought up a couple of times about Glen Powell where it's like she's a huge Tom Cruise fan, and she's like, back when Tom Cruise was first starting out, she's like, she recognized, or it's been like in his like any biography or stuff, is like Paul Newman kind of recognized that Tom Cruise was going to be like huge, like kind of the next Paul Newman. And Paul Newman does Color of Money with Tom Cruise in a way to sort of like pass that torch onto him. And she kind of mentioned how it feels like Tom Cruise is doing the same thing now with Glen Powell, where he cast Glen Powell in Top Gun Maverick, goes completely out of his way to promote the hell out of that with Glen Powell, and then has been doing a bunch of like promotion of Twisters just because Glen Powell is in it. And it sort of feels like Tom Cruise is like paying it forward. Paul Newman did this for me when I was kind of first starting up. I recognized that Glen Powell maybe has something here. I want to do this for Glen Powell. And so far, like I said, I'm all in on the Glen Powell train.
All right.
I'm more ambivalent to him. If I remember, there's like a somewhat romantic subplot between Glen Powell and I'm forgetting the lead actress's name.
Oh yeah.
But they end up foregoing it because I think even Glen Powell and Daisy were like, this is unnecessary. It's not part of the story. We don't need to force a romantic subplot. Do they actually have a romantic subplot, or do they just kind of like keep it superficial?
You can feel like some of the tension there, and like it's really well played that like if you want to read some heavy romantic subplot in it, go right ahead. But like also you can read it as like two really hot people that both nerd out about tornadoes and just kind of have like this like super amazing chemistry and are just, gonna, like feed off of each other's energy for a while. So I think you could read it both ways. It's definitely intended to be romantic. I like how they did it though. I like how they don't even kiss. Like and it's really nice. Like you can just kind of enjoy it both ways, I guess.
Yeah. I'm all right with that. I'll give it a shot.
Oh yeah.
It sounds like you would say this is a must see.
Must see. Definitely must see. I've already tried to convince my wife that I need to spend the $20 to rent it on video on demand so that she can watch it without going to the theater.
It'll be out on Blu-ray and 4K and whatever else in like another few weeks. All right, Alex, we've been pushing this one off, but it's time for you to reveal your pain or your joy. I really don't know where you're going with this one. All I know is you sat through 6 hours of the director's cut for Rebel Moon.
Josh.
Alex.
So I have said 1,000 times that I defend Zack Snyder. I think The Watchmen is massively underrated. I like the Owls of Ga'Hoole. I don't like Man of Steel. I think the Snyder cut is better than the Whedon cut and blah, blah, blah. This 6-hour version is an astounding improvement over the neutered cuts that we got. Here's the problem. The first one I think is 3:17 if with the credits. I think the second one's like slightly longer. It's not that good, man. Okay, listen. It's I was at first I was excited because I love lore. I am a slut for lore. You put lore into something, I am all for it. The beginning is completely different in that it follows Francis from Deadpool, that actor. It follows them conquering this planet, lore about what is going on, why there's a war, and then you get those like scribes who are following. And anytime they like conquer a planet and defeat like the main administrator of that planet, they scribes yank out one of the teeth and they plunge it into like this mural board that they're building has the dead princess's image on it, because they're building basically like we're getting everybody who could have done something against you, kind of like memorial thing. There's some cool crap in here. Yes, Josh, you get your tentacle sex that I know you're really
gonna ask.
We get a lot of sex, a lot of answers. Like in the first movie, there's this random thing where it's like, oh yeah, where Korra is there, like like it is harvest, the time for the harvest season to begin as we plant, and let's all go and have sex. Well, now you have them actually just cursing, talking about, yeah, we're gonna fuck each other hard to get a fucking hard harvest, and it's like, okay. And you remember,
Do you want
Josh,
a hard harvest?
Wait, is that the verbatim line?
It's something like he's actually Corey Stoll is actually there talking about like, let's go fuck hard tonight so that we have a bountiful harvest. And his wife is undoing his pants and he's like, woman, I'll give you what you seek. Let me finish my speech. And then he looks at the audience, everybody in the town, and goes, did I mention to fuck hard? Okay, cool. And he sits down, like drags her onto his lap. And people start like hooking with each other. And remember, Josh, the first episode where they show the next morning Korra, like that girl teasing her about, like, I heard you and what's his name last night. And she's like, who are you talking about? I wasn't with anybody.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. Okay. So apparently she does hook up with somebody randomly. Apparently her and some other dude have like this casual thing, but it's so awkward. And all I could think about was she ends up going back to the house and is like, so you and him hooked up again? And she's like, yeah, we're keeping it casual. And he's like, you've been doing this for a while. And it's not the romance guy. It's some dude named Den. They have such an awkward seduction scene where he's into her, but she's just really kind of like, I just want to get laid. And this is horrible because he struggles undoing her bra.
Because that's needed in a sci-fi epic.
And she's like, and he's like, and they do a close-up of like, trying to do the hooks. And then she kind of like, she shoves him down on the bed, hops on, and takes it off. And I'm like, there's backstory. There's cool creatures. There's blood and guts and gore. There's bio-alien creatures that control ships. It's just not good. I mean, I would love to have a Spielberg cut of the Snyder cut, because Spielberg could slide in there and be like, dude, you're trying to make a Star Wars movie? I'm friends with Lucas. Let me just do a little trimming for you. This is my problem. There is a good 2-hour, 2-part movie in here. I don't believe either versions that we were given are that.
Do we at least learn how Jimmy gets his crown of horns?
Yes, we get so much more Jimmy.
That's good.
And I don't care.
Aw.
I'm watching this going like, having seen the PG-13 cut, I now understand that Corey Stoll was given 2 scripts. Here's the PG-13 script, and we would like to give you a secondary script here. The secondary script, okay, it's the exact same script except she grabs my penis. Okay. And I say fuck more. Which, poor Korra, I understand why she defends it, because there's something good in here. There is something
Sophia
strong.
Botella?
Yeah,
Sophia.
Like that? But she's such a badass. Her character is great. The backstory, there's more backstory, her backstory about why she's an orphan of war and the lover and all this, and it's just not good. And can we stop talking about it? I'm sad.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll live with my happy memory of Jimmy just creeping up at the end of the first movie with his, in my head, the Peter Griffin laughing. Hey.
That's what we got, man. Oh,
I'll just live with that happy memory for the rest of my life. I won't have to worry about anything else unless we expand further and we end up having to torture ourselves with audio commentaries on movies.
Hey, the first one we do, we've talked about it. It's going to be the Three Amigos.
Three Amigos, it has to be.
Oh, talk about a movie that formed my childhood.
Oh. Do we have a fan?
Oh my God, I love the Three Amigos. One of my all-time favorite Steve Martin. It's one of my favorite Steve Martin movies for sure.
Josh, this
We need a
podcast has
soundboard.
got to go in a different direction.
Let's get it.
Just a Three Amigos appreciation podcast where we just watch the Three Amigos every week.
Oh yeah, I can tell stories about how I danced with my mom at my wedding to My Little Buttercup. That was our mother-son dance.
Now I screwed up my wedding. Now I need to go back and have that moment.
Oh, must be a male plane.
How do you
Little balls. Little balls.
you can kiss me on the veranda? The lips would be fine.
And it's how I learned what a plethora is.
My wife Ricky she's been doing some more shopping, getting ready for like colder weather for the kids, and every time she comes home with a sweater, I go, "It's a sweater!
It's a sweater!
It's a sweater!
And every time she looks at me like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
One of my favorite things is just the earnest way of when the Amigos are breaking in and they're like, "Are Amigos falling from the sky? No, Gringos falling from the sky?" Yes, oh guapo. It's like every once in a while, like my wife will say something like, and I'll just look at her just very passionately. Yes, oh guapo.
I think the Three Amigos was also like my first introduction to the like, just the blank stare punchline where like Dusty's telling I forget her name. What's the girl's name that they're coming to her village to save?
Oh man.
I can't remember. But he's like, I'll return someday, and she's like, why?
I love that so much.
Like it gets punchlined with Ned making out with the extraordinarily beautiful woman, but like
That we've never
the
seen
why,
before. Yeah.
yeah. But like I'll come back someday. Why? Like that part just I was like, I love that. How do I get more of that kind of humor? and now I'm me, and that's what it is.
Yeah, Carmen. Yeah.
Carmen, that's right.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So Alex, we have to talk about Rebel Moon for one more second here. Is it a must see or a pass?
Don't put yourself through. If you haven't seen the movies,
Consider yourself lucky and say thank you.
do not do a review and compare like I did. If you haven't seen them, it's a must watch. It is a fascinating what could have been Star Wars if Disney went, fuck it, let's try something new. But it is not great on its own, especially when you've invested, was it 9 months from December to now, 2 different cuts, and then must watch if you're just gonna watch it. Watch the director's cuts. It's fascinating. It's interesting. It's Snyder at his Snyderiest. Sophia does an amazing job and sells it. Francis does a great job. There's weird tentacle stuff. But if you've seen and didn't really like the first the original cuts, watch Three Amigos 4 times. You'll get more pleasure.
That might be the truest thing we've ever said on this podcast.
That's the new rating system is, would you watch this or would you rather watch Three Amigos?
I don't know if there's anything that I would rather not watch than the Three Amigos several times in a row. Maybe Jurassic Park? The original Star Wars?
See, once you start to go down the list, you're like, okay, like, is this an Amigos movie? Is it not an Amigos movie?
Oh, I have a new soundbite for us. Anytime one of us goes on a rant like one of us just did, you need to play the like, Hefe, are you really mad? Or perhaps it's because you're turning 40.
No.
That'll have to be the intro to our July episodes for next year because I'll be turning 40.
Oh, I just
love
love
upset about something else.
I love it.
We only got tequila. It's like beer.
It's like beer.
All right. So we've got a little bit of time. Dan, is there anything else you've been watching that you want to review quick?
You know what? I will throw this out because it's not anything new, but it's new to the streaming world. Finally, it's been my white whale. Ladies and gentlemen, the Drew Carey Show is now streaming.
Where?
You gotta. It's called Plex.
Okay. Yeah.
Plex. It's completely. It's like a Tubi, like completely free. All 9 seasons.
All of them.
All of them. I started at season 1, episode 1. I've been watching. I'm like 3/4 of the way through the first season. It still holds up. So, some of the humor is a little like it's that 90s, like you're gonna get that, but like it's not as bad as some of the other big shows in the 90s. It still holds up. Drew Carey, you kind of forget how funny he actually is when he's like acting or needs to be doing something. It is so good, and I've been like, it's like every once in a while I would just be like, oh, can I find the Drew Carey Show on DVD? Can I find it here? Like, you couldn't find it anywhere. Streaming, DVD, nowhere. And it's finally out. And so I wanted to use this small portion of time to let the masses know where they can finally enjoy it.
The Drew Carey Show, I loved it. I watched it from the beginning, and it was one of the first kind of shows where I was like, what is going on here? Like, why did it disappear and come back? Then they burned off like the final season and a half in the middle of summer. Like, they would just do a block of like 2 to 4 episodes just to get rid of it. It's one of those shows that like built up a weird lore around it because he struck a great deal. I think it was with Disney, no, ABC. I think was the show was on. Yeah, because it was also with Whose Line, and they guaranteed him like 2 or 3 more seasons. But then they wanted to get rid of it, but they couldn't. So they just allowed him to do whatever he wanted for the last 2 seasons. So it takes some weird, bizarre shifts.
Yeah.
It goes single camera for like, I think a season towards the end where they don't do the 3 camera setup. It's just a single one like you would eventually get with The Office. It broke weird ground, and it was a bizarre show. Like he just went, let's do whatever we can. We're getting paid. No one's going to see this. We'll do whatever we want. I think one of the last episodes, he basically flooded the entire set for a rainstorm because it was raining, and it was like, and he just drenched the whole set in the house and stuff. And people left, came back, but that show just formed some weird, great core memory. I mean, Panama stuck in my head forever because of that. I cannot hear Panama without seeing him dancing in the house, trying to be forced out by Mimi.
It's the one show with 3 theme songs that all slap. And get like increasingly better as they go, and it just for me, like growing up, like it was one of the first shows where I was like, oh, this is an adult show. Like adults watch this, and it's funny. I like this. I can like adult things. Like that makes me an adult now. Yeah, I was over the moon when I found this. It's been years I've been trying to find that, and thank God for Plex. I didn't know you existed until now, and this is now the only reason I've downloaded you on my Fire Stick.
Awesome. Yeah. Drew Carey Show, also the show that introduced me to Krista Miller, and I was like, damn. Like not to just make someone break them down into just their physical appearance, but like Krista Miller was very appealing back in those days.
No, Kate gave many a teenager.
She ushered many of us through the onset of puberty. Yes,
and lest we forget, introduced America to Craig Ferguson.
That's right.
Yeah, just damn happy about that. I did not know that. Thank you so much.
I'm glad I could help.
All right, Alex, any quick hits you got?
All right, this is not a good show, but it is an expensive show, and it is fascinating to see.
You already talked about Rebel Moon.
It's called Those About to Die. I'm an easy sell. If you say it involves Romans, I'm in. My most recent birthday, we took a trip to Rome because I wanted to see Roman stuff, and I saw a lot of Roman stuff, and I did not see enough. And so I'm like, all right, we have Anthony Hopkins, we have Ramsey Bolton. Let's see what this is. And it very quickly you find out that this is a Roland Emmerich production because the cast is about 24 more people than needs to be for any scene. They are the storylines. They shove everyone in these storylines. Everybody gets like 2 to 3 minutes per episode to do their thing. The CGI, which I think it was $140 million dollar production for 10 episodes to recreate Rome, and the big budget shots were like sweeping vistas of like the Colosseum and the circus, and it's really bad. The thing is, it's about chariot riders and their factions and the emperors. And the chariot riders are obviously blue screened, and those wide shots are obviously CGI. But I will say, Ramsay Bolton can sell the hell out of a performance. He's not playing like a straight up evil guy like he did in Game of Thrones. He's playing this guy. He is a major owner of the major gambling hall, built himself up from nothing, and he wants to be given more respect, and he's making deals with the emperor.
He's
and all this
Littlefinger.
stuff. Yeah, he's Littlefinger, but he's a much more sympathetic version. He shows emotional depth. He has this like network of spies, which are kids because the orphan children, because he was an orphan and he takes care of them, pays for them to eat and stuff like that, and they all do their secrets for him and stuff. But I will say the reason why I watch this show is a Numidian who her 3 children all end up in slavery in Rome. Her played by Sarah Martins. Her name is Calla. She ends up falling in with Tanix, Ramsay's character. And their chemistry is electric because she's playing him, he's playing like her. And you can see he has vulnerability. You can see she's dangerous. And it's like a will they, won't they thing. And yet they don't. And I don't think this is going to get a second season. But it is fascinating to actually have like this palpable chemistry of 2 people who are working their own desires with each other and yet against each other, and have romantic tension with each other, and yet neither wants to admit it. It works so much so that the last 4 episodes, my wife sat down and was like, because she was like kind of watching me. I was catching her up when she was doing other stuff, and finally she's like, "All right, I'm in. I want to see what happens with these 2 and stuff." It's not great, but I mean, it's sword and I love sword and sandal stuff. I love the politicking and stuff. It plays with history a little bit because a lot of the it's done during the Flavian dynasty and does follow a lot of what happens there, and some of those emperors and senators and stuff are all there. And I'm a sucker for stuff like that. Is it Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon good? No. But then again, House of the Dragon Game of Thrones has a very wide margin of what's considered good and not. And this feels a fix, and it's fun. And I just love gladiator crap. So for me, it's a must-see if you want to see Anthony Hopkins take a very nice paycheck.
Yeah, Ramsay Bolton playing Maximus in Inhumans, like he was probably the only good part of that show too. Which that show had some good actors in there also. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he brings it. Like he's a guy that's kind of gotten a bad rap, or he's just been picking bad projects, sort of like Ben Foster in the mid 2000s. Like he did X-Men 3, and then he did 3:10 to Yuma, and it's like, wow, this guy could be a rising star. And then he just chose a whole bunch of really weird movies that never got widely distributed, and he just kind of fell off the face of the earth. Like I know he's still working, but I have no idea what he's doing.
It kind of reminds me of Alan Rickman. You when you play such an amazing bad guy that you offered only bad guy roles. So what Alan Rickman did, but. I believe it's Sense and Sensibility. Alan Rickman actually got to play a romantic lead with one of the Emmas. I forget which Emma. And Kate Winslet's in it. And I absolutely love that movie because he gets to play a romantic lead. And Emma Thompson, that's who it is. And and you have Alan Rickman, Kate Winslet, Hugh Grant. It's a great movie. And you expect him, of course, he appears on screen. It's like, oh, it's Alan Rickman. Who's he going to try to kill now? And no, he's just kind of like this dopey, forlorn lover who really wants respect, and it's great. I'd like to see Ramsay Bolton do that, which I know he has a name. It's I believe Iwan Rheon. I'm not sure.
Like Rheon or something like that.
He's a Welsh name, but
it's easier to say Ramsay Bolton.
Yeah, he sells it, and seriously, him and Sarah Martins, just anytime they're together, they're just playing off each other so well. I loved it.
Doesn't surprise me about the CGI, because like even in the trailers and stuff, it's kind of like this looks a little like Sci-Fi Channel-y. you know. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
they're-
usually the trailer you're supposed to say like that's the good stuff, like that's where you're getting the good thing. Like this is the best you got.
What about you, Josh? You got anything for us?
I do want to talk about the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, actually. I was really looking forward to this, to the point where, like, the point of this whole episode is, like, things we would talk about on the podcast if we had the time. It's Guy Ritchie doing a declassified World War II story about essentially an unsanctioned mission to try and sabotage some German subs and, like, their production. And Henry Cavill plays the leader of this ragtag group of misfits that includes like the most giant Swiss man you've ever seen who loves using bows and arrows, played by Alan Ritchson. The characters are fun, but the events of the movie are not. Like, it tries to get a little Inglourious Bastards with some infiltration stuff, where they have Eliza Gonzalez playing a character who's like infiltrating some German hierarchies, and she's pretending to be like a U.S. actress who's sympathetic to the German cause and trying to get like keys so they can get into a warehouse. But what was the Kevin Hart movie we talked about earlier this year, Alex? Was it Heist or something like that?
Yep.
Where the problem with that movie is that any problem that comes up, they resolve within that scene. So like there's a moment where they set sail to sail around Europe to get into Italy to get to this submarine refueling station, essentially. And they're like, oh no, we're too close. We're like threading the needle between the submarines and the Allied forces and their blockade. But there's a storm coming, so we have less time, so we need to take a slightly shorter route, and we're going to end up going into the blockade. What do we do? How do we get by this problem? We just go to the blockade. Like, and then the blockade stops them for like 5 minutes, and then they're like, bye. It's I was hoping for something kind of akin to like Kingsman, with some hyper violent stuff. But you know, it's Guy Ritchie, so it's tight quarters, quick action, high frame rate stuff. And you get some of that, but it's not as visceral as I think you would expect it to be given the trailer. And especially with like as unhinged as Henry Cavill looks in certain scenes where he's like doing the like Gene Simmons kiss tongue and all these other things. It's very British, I guess would be the American way to put it, where they're just like very pip proper, talking about like just being very casual in the way they discuss these things. And none of it ever feels like, how are they getting out of this? What's going to happen here? There's even like a scene where they're waiting for someone as they're waiting for like the big explosion to happen, and they're like, they'll be here. And then sure enough, like 2 seconds before, they're just rolling up on the boat, and they're like, hey, thanks for waiting for us. And they're like, yeah, no problem. Then boom, big explosion. And like, yay, we got away with it all. And there's a nice post credits or end credits sequence where they show like the real people that the story is based on. And much to my dismay, the Swiss person was not the most giant man in the world, but he was still like, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a Swiss dude.
I know I'm getting this conflated, but this is a movie, right? Because I thought that Guy Ritchie was also doing like a TV series.
No, it might be also. It might be also being turned into like a legitimate TV series, because like the story around it is fascinating, where Churchill and a guy played by Cary Elwes, a general, are sanctioning this covert operation where, again, it's like Mission Impossible rules, where you get found out, you're fucked. Like we cannot say that we authorized this mission, otherwise we have committed war crimes. And so the idea is, don't get caught, don't let any of these things happen. And it's, again, there's no real tension, because you're just like, we know what happens, and the movie's not doing a good enough job of making me think like who survives, who doesn't survive. There's none of that. Like, everyone just gets out alive.
So you have Henry Cavill, Alan Richardson, Eiza Gonzalez, Cary Elwes, and Rory Kinnear. How is this not
There's stuff that's fun, but it feels derivative. Like I said, there's like Inglourious Bastards infiltration stuff, and like it's not anything we haven't seen before, but it's based on a real life mission and a real life story. So you think you would have plenty of give to make this an interesting and entertaining story, especially when there's a prison breakout scene, which that's probably the highlight of the movie, but it's still not entirely done in a way that I think Guy Ritchie excels in to make it visually entertaining. It feels very color by numbers.
No, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, that sucks. Like you said, it had all like the Kingsman vibes to it. So I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm interested in this. I want to give this a shot, but that's a bummer to hear.
Like, I don't think it's not bad, but it's like it's streaming good, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a really good Adam Conover video that Alex, I had you watch, where basically he says like streaming is, we used to have channels that were specified to our taste, Comedy Central, TLC, History Channel, whatever, and now everyone's just in a streaming platform, and the streaming platform has to appeal to everyone. And that's kind of what this movie feels like. It feels like it was made to appeal to everyone instead of like, I'm here for historical fiction, action adventure, fun romp where Nazis get killed, there's hyper violent action and all this sort of stuff, where it feels like in really weird spots they're like, well, we have to maintain realism and coherence to the story, even though like no one knows what the story is because it's just been declassified within the last like 5 years.
I love James Bond. Ian Fleming's listed as in the credits. Do they make like hint like that he's going to go on and write the James Bond's novels?
I legitimately cannot remember.
That's unfortunate.
If I remember, he's played by the King of Sweden from The Great, who also played, what's his name? Gawain in House of the Dragon. Wayne with a G. I believe that's who it was, because I've seen him pop up several times this year, and every time I'm like, hey, it's the guy who is in The Great, because he's the King of Sweden who's been ostracized or been he's been cooed. But I would say I'm kind of breaking the rules here with the must see or pass. I don't think it's a pass, because I think it is genuinely interesting, but I don't know that it's entertaining. So you need to temper what you're expecting going into it.
All right, I see. That's unfortunate, because I love Henry Cavill, and I want to see Alan Richardson do something that makes me want to watch. I mean, I love Reacher. I will watch however many seasons they decide to go with that. I'm in for it. Big burly man, punch things. Someone's driving at him in a motorcycle, and he just reaches out and plucks them off of it. Physics be damned. I'm sold 10,000%. But I was hoping to see him like do something kind of engaging, because I want to see Henry Cavill do well, other than be the Calvarine and stuff like that. And I have a little bit of a crush on Isaac Gonzalez, but I want a reason to watch them.
I think it's worth a watch. Like, if there's nothing else you're doing, I think it's worth 2 hours of your time. I think Alan Richardson plays a really interesting character, because he's this gigantic man, and he uses a lot of like bows and arrows and hunting knives and axes, and like he doesn't get guns, but like he kind of plays it a little differently, where you would think with as big and brawny as he is, he's like the boxer guy. He's gonna like rip you apart with his bare hands, but he almost comes across more as like a gentle giant because of the way he engages in conflict.
All right.
But I mean, Henry Cavill also like extraordinarily charismatic. Like, I don't know that he has ever turned in a bad performance. Even in The Witcher, like I think his performance is steady, consistently good. In this, it's very good too. He's charismatic as hell. Like he's a British Napoleon from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Like it's a seamless comparison between the two. Like, Henry Cavill has the charisma. He has everything you want in a leading man. The only problem is he just can't get a good movie to catch a break to get his franchise going.
Argyle. That was a real bummer to see Henry Cavill wasted in Argyle.
With that haircut too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know who was thinking that. Like, yeah, that was you don't put Henry Cavill in that haircut. I'm sorry.
It's like putting a bumper sticker on a Maserati.
There you go.
Oh, very nicely said.
With that, Dan, please let everyone know again where they can find you on social media, as well as on their podcatchers and YouTubes.
Yeah, for sure. You can find me bouncing around at some of our different stuff on Game On Wisconsin on the YouTube side. Every Monday currently on the Pack a Day podcast. That's There's a YouTube version of the Pack a Day podcast. I rarely go on there. The podcast version is where you'll find me over there. But anything that I've got going on, or just I'm bored on a Monday, like I probably will be tomorrow. I'll be on on Twitter or whatever they decide to call it now. At DK All the Way is where you can find me there.
Dan, thanks so much for being here. Pack a Day is a part of my every Monday, as well as throughout the week. I watch all the YouTube videos and everything that comes up. Tell Andy Herman I said hi.
You sound like my dad. He knows that I work with Andy, and like Andy will go on some talk show in Green Bay or something my dad listens to, and he'll text me. He's like, "Hey, like heard your buddy Andy." I'm like, "Yeah, I talk to him all the time on Twitter." Like, he's just a guy.
Yeah, Andy Herman and Aaron Nagler are two guys that like I would just love to just sit down and have a beer with, even though I don't drink beer. I'll have a gin and tonic. They can drink beers or old fashions, whatever they want. And I would just love to just listen to them talk, because I'm not the smartest sports person. I still occupy the eye test grading scale, whereas everyone's moved on to like analytics and everything. But I'm just like, yeah, that guy didn't look great today, but I see what I see. But I will always defer to people who dive into this stuff more than me when they talk about who's good or who's bad. I don't think I have any leg to stand on when it comes to talking about who plays sports well. And I'll defer to the people who take their time to study it and learn all these new things.
Oh, I don't know. I talk every week on it, and I'm full of crap.
Alex, let everyone know about our Discord.
Our Discord is where you can find us talking about stuff. Believe it or not, it is a text-based platform with some audio features and video, I hear, where you can discuss superheroes, movies, animation, and comics right with us. We have dedicated channels to just about everything your heart's desire. Like you may be shocked to find out we have a Star Wars channel. That's how deep the rabbit hole goes on our Discord.
You can find the
You're
link
not
to our
finding that anywhere else.
Nope.
What are channels? You can find the link to our Discord in our episode description. You can also find us on all the social media platforms at Talking Smack Pod on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, Hive Social, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and of course Lonnie's website. You can email us your thoughts, questions, reviews, comments, whatever, tsmackpod@gmail.com. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit the like button, comment, subscribe. Thank you to Leo Allen for our musical themes, Beppo for our original avatars, Retro Ale Studios for our Ricky avatar. Please like, subscribe, rate, review on your podcatcher of choice. Alex, once again, thank you for being here. Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
This has been a real pleasure. And if you don't mind, leave us with one final thing. If you could leave us with a watch Star Trek.
Watch Star Trek.
Perfect.
Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Most importantly, all you listeners, take care. And because Dan's here, we'll say go, Pack, go.
Bingo.
Sorry, Alex. You can pull out your terrible towel another time.
Wiping the tears with it.
Oh, Alex, who's doing the remix? I forgot to ask.
That was John Carpenter, fresh off of Big Trouble in Little China.
Who loves T-Smack?
I love T-Smack. Is it true? Mm-hmm. I do, ooh.